The anime begins inside a dungeon where Kaido stands before a tiny slime, hesitating to make the first move, as the slime leaps towards him, and he brings out 2 insecticide sprays from his backpack and eliminates the slime by depleting all of its health points. After defeating the slime, a magic stone appears as a loot drop. Before collecting the loot drop, Kaido puts away this insect spray and starts acting like a dungeon slayer. Even though he is just an ordinary powerless loser, this loser has been exploring the first floor of this very dungeon for the past 2 years, hunting slime to make extra cash. Up until now, he has hunted a total of 999 slimes, and so he decides to hunt another one to reach the 1000 milestone. He starts exploring the first floor looking for slime, when a surveillance camera planted in the ceiling begins to keep an eye on his movements. Kaido finds a rare golden slime just chilling against a wall, so he decides to hunt it down, considering it to be the perfect opponent. He sneaks up behind the slime by tippy-toeing towards it and starts spraying it with his insecticide. The golden slime acts quickly and evades his attack, so he brings out a much more powerful weapon, a jet spray insecticide gun, and shoots it down successfully. Even though Kaido just defeated this rare monster, the system doesn't show his status update, making him wonder why he didn't level up. He assumes that he received fewer experience points because he used the insect spray to defeat the slime, but he doesn't think much of it, as bro's only goal here is to make money. He goes up front to see what loot drop he got by defeating the rare slime. Instead of a magic core, he discovers a golden card with a picture of a busted girl with wings on her back. Before jumping to any conclusions, Kaido first inspects the card and sees that the card's name is Sylphie and her class name is Valkyrie. Her skill is Divine Lightning, Iron Maiden's Wall, and her equipment is Divine Spear Radiant. He realizes that the card he has in his hands is a servant card and becomes truly overjoyed by it. He looks up on the internet to see what kind of servant Sylphie even is, but fails to find any data related to her. Since Sylphie's Valkyrie class comes from Greek mythology, he believes that she might be a demigod. Having no information on this card whatsoever, he leaves the dungeon through gate number 6 when he comes across an adventurer party heading inside. Their expensive armor and equipment make him jealous, so he considers selling his card for a high price so that he can afford to buy armor as well. At the trading hall, he exchanges his 3 magic cores first, which he got from regular slime, for a meager 1,500 yen, and then asks the receptionist Hitsugaya about how much a rare servant card could be traded for. Hitsugaya gives him a rough estimate of 1 billion yen, making the boy realize that he has just hit the jackpot. He puts the card inside his storage space and leaves the dungeon while repeating the words 1 billion yen like an NPC. I would like to mention that there are many guards and surveillance cameras that are continuously watching over the dungeon explorers, possibly because they don't want the explorers to receive any high-ranked rewards. We get a better view of this dungeon that is situated in the center of the city and has been greatly commercialized, turning it into an amusement park. Apparently it has been 4 years since the opening of this dungeon, which is officially known as Dungeon Park. Not only people come here to explore dungeons, but there are also many families, including kids and their parents, who come to visit there every day to have a good time. Kaido's 2 friends, Shinji and Hayato, find him mumbling about 1 billion yen, but they do not question him about it, as they assume that this delusional loser is just daydreaming. Both Shinji and Hayato claim to have also been granted the Dungeon Explorer Pass, but they decide to use it to just play inside the park instead of exploring the dungeon. The 3 friends take the train back home, and on their way, Shinji asks Kaido what level he is currently at. Kaido tells them that he is only at level 3 because all he does is hunt slime. Kaido reveals that his 2 friends had tried exploring the dungeon with him before, but almost lost all of their lives on the 2nd floor when they were up against a goblin. The 3 of them, with their homemade mom-approved weapons, charged towards the goblin but got brutally beaten up, making them realize what they were up against. Thanks to having a potion, they were able to heal up, but that one incident made both Shinji and Hayato realize that they weren't suited for action and adventures. His friends wonder why Kaido has been doing the same boring thing for the past 2 years, so they ask Kaido if there is some reason behind it that is forcing him to hunt slime. Kaido doesn't explain to them and just tells them that there has been a lot going on with his life recently. While walking back home, he looks over to his neighbor's house where a girl of his same age is about to close the curtains, which indicates that Kaido admires this girl in secret. Back at home, on the TV channel where the news anchor tells us exactly when the dungeons appeared in this world, apparently it was 13 years ago, but it was only 4 years before the dungeons were open to the general public to explore. The government has made many laws when exploring dungeons, and one of them is that the explorer has to be at least 15 years old. Kaido joins his parents for dinner and tells them that he has taken a part-time job. This lie implies that Kaido hid from his parents about him becoming a dungeon explorer for God knows what reason. After dinner, Bro takes a shower and he once again wonders if he will be able to become stronger if he summons the rare servant Sylphie. He has two options now, either summon Sylphie and explore the deeper levels of the dungeon with her or trade her for better equipment, a heck of a lot of money and an overall luxurious lifestyle. The sheer dilemma makes him lose focus so much that he almost drowns himself in the bathtub. The next morning, he heads for school and runs into the girl from last night named Haruka Katsuragi. They walk together to school, but because they are so close to each other, the bystanders begin to think that they are a couple, so Kaido tries to distance himself, but he realizes that this will only make things more awkward, so he continues to walk with her, ignoring the bystanders. Katsuragi mentions that she saw him walking back home last night and asked him where he was before then. Kaido hides from her as well about him being a dungeon explorer and goes with a lie, telling her that he went to a boys-only party with his two friends Shinji and Hayato. Speaking of the devils, both Shinji and Hayato make their appearance there, so Kaido quickly takes them away for a private conversation and begs them not to tell Katsuragi that he went to the dungeon yesterday. Being true homies, both Shinji and Hayato vouch for Kaido, but they come up with different stories which make Katsuragi realize that all three of them are actually lying to her. She comes to the most probable conclusion that Kaido went to the dungeons, but he completely denies it, telling her that he would never do that in his life, so she doesn't push this conversation any further and continues to walk towards school. Later, inside their classroom, Kaido gives both of his friends a what-if situation, as he doesn't want to tell them that he has this jackpot of 1 billion yen. He asks them what they would do if they received a rare dungeon card, and both of them share the same opinion of selling their card as it can only be used in dungeons, so Kaido also starts considering selling his servant card. In the end, he goes to the dungeon again, hides behind the walls, so the surveillance camera can't see him, and decides to summon the card, stating that he is doing this for the sake of Katsuragi. He summoned the card, which illuminates the entire area and turns into a gigantic melon mommy, who grabs Kaido with her hands and then disappears into nothingness. Kaido becomes greatly confused as he doesn't understand where the goddess suddenly went off to, but as he looks down, he discovers that there is a miniature version of this melon mommy, Sylphie. Sylphie introduces herself to Kaido and immediately shatters his hopes and dreams, as he cannot believe that he just wasted 1 billion yen on this little girl. Seeing him mourn, Sylphie asks him what's wrong, but he tells her that he is fine. Knowing that nothing can be done now, he moves on and invites Sylphie to join him on his slime hunt session. Sylphie senses the presence of a slime close by and takes Kaido towards it, making him realize that this little girl might actually turn out to be useful for him. To see whether she is even good at real combat, Kaido asks her to defeat that slime for him. With full determination, Sylphie walks towards the slime and blasts their way with godly lighting, leaving Kaido's mouth wide open. According to the system, Sylphie's battle point is 17 times more than Kaido's, but instead of becoming happy to have an overpowered companion, Kaido is rather sad because he starts to understand how pathetically weak he is. Sylphie expresses how exhausted she has gotten from launching that single attack and requests Kaido to give her some food. Apparently, servants like her can only eat magic cores, so Kaido lets her eat the slime Lu drop, replenishing her energy. Sylphie senses another slime nearby, but Kaido doesn't think that fighting slime is profitable anymore because Sylphie will end up eating all of the loot after defeating them, so he only uses her help to track down the slime and takes some down himself using his insecticide spray. Shortly after, he reaches level 4 and becomes a little bit stronger as well. The system unlocks a new skill called the Slime Slayer for Kaido because of how many slimes he has defeated. This skill allows the user to have all of their status increased by 50% when fighting slime. In any case, the loser decides to call it a day and promises Sylphie that he will summon her again in the near future. He summons her back to her card and then heads out of the dungeon. He goes to the trading hall again, but unlike last time, he has dozens of magic cores and exchanges all of them for 15,000 yen. Later at night, Kaido finds it hard to sleep because what his mind can only think of is how powerful Sylphie is. He knows that she is good enough for floor 2, but because of the past incident, he is scared of goblins. Soon he falls asleep and sees a flashback of him and Katsuragi watching TV in their childhood days. Katsuragi's father was in charge of clearing the initial stages of the dungeons back then, and he even appeared on TV. His heroism pushed Kaido to become a dungeon explorer. The next day, Kaido goes back to the dungeon and heads to the second floor with Sylphie as he wants to become a hero just like Katsuragi's father. After walking down the stairs to the second floor of the dungeon, Kaido starts to panic. Sylphie notices how much he is trembling in fear and asks him if anything is wrong. He claims to be totally fine as he doesn't want to embarrass himself, saying that he is about to piss his pants off at the sheer thought of facing goblins. Sylphie realizes that this loser here is scared for his life, so she holds his hand, giving him mental support and helps him calm down. Thanks to Sylphie, Kaido regains his composure and officially begins exploring the second floor. Apparently, it was 2 years ago when he came to this floor for the first and last time. You already know the backstory of how he and his two friends got beaten up by a single goblin. So anyway, Sylphie detects a goblin right around the corner and once again triggers the fear inside Kaido's heart. Knowing that the goblin is on the north side, Kaido starts running in the opposite direction, making the excuse to Sylphie that he has something important to deal with. While running away like the pathetic loser he is, he remembers how much he looks up to Katsuragi's dad. He reminds himself of his goal to go from being a useless nobody to being a hero and starts slapping himself to pump himself up. With his thoughts cleared up and his cheeks swollen, he brings out a wooden sword to use against the dungeon. Being beyond broken, this loser can't even afford a real sword and he dares to call himself a dungeon explorer. But whatever, the two companions peek at the goblin, who is taking a nap. Obviously, Kaido cannot fight against a goblin yet, so he asks Sylphie if she can defeat it on her own. She gladly takes the challenge, but as she is about to launch her divine lightning strike on it, Kaido intervenes, telling her to stay back as he wants to experience actual battle for once. He tells Sylphie that in order to become a hero he will have to face his troubles eventually. He is still terrified, to say the least, so he asks Sylphie to cast her divine lightning strike on the goblin just in case he gets into any trouble. With the child demigod by his side, Kaido swings his sword against the goblin, but his aim is so bad that his attack doesn't even reach half the distance to where the goblin is. The goblin rushes towards Kaido and tries to tackle him, which Kaido blocks using a homemade shield. The goblin keeps pushing Kaido behind, but Kaido turns out to be stronger than him and pushes the goblin away. With the goblin down, he takes the opportunity and strikes him with his sword, but yet again, he fails to land the hit as the goblin grabs the sword mid-attack and throws it away. Just as it's about to look like things will go down south, Kaido uses his insecticide spray on the goblin's eyes and blinds him momentarily. He grabs his sword again and rushes towards the goblin, but he ends up tripping against a rock and hitting the goblin's belly with his wooden sword. Although in reality this attack would be deemed completely useless because Kaido is at level 4 and has a good amount of battle strength, it was enough to defeat the goblins. Kaido stands still in his place with tears in his eyes, amazed by his own feat. He grabs the goblin magic core, which is almost 5 times larger than the slime magic core, and then expresses how glad he is that he was able to defeat it. Sylphie praises Kaido, telling him that he was incredible, but suggests that he should take her help from now on. Kaido levels up again, making him wonder how weird this system is, because it only took him a single goblin to get to the next level, where he even defeating 1000 slimes only leveled him up 3 times. He unlocks a new skill called Temporary Goblin Slayer, which according to the system is only given to users who overcome their fear of dying to goblins and defeat them themselves. This skill increases all stats of the user by 10% when fighting goblins. However, this skill is temporary and that is why it is less effective. Regardless of his new skill, Kaido is happy because he was able to defeat a goblin all by himself. Along with Sylphie, he continues to explore the second floor and runs into another goblin, but this time Sylphie is acting as support for Kaido. She doesn't use her signature attack and instead uses another one of her skills called Iron Wall Maiden, which creates a barrier that doesn't allow any monsters to penetrate through it. While the dumb monster is mindlessly trying to break past the barrier, Kaido lands a strike on it. Similarly, he defeats a few more goblins with Sylphie's guidance and assists, and he levels up to level 6. While looking for more goblins, Kaido asks Sylphie about her knowledge about the dungeons. She claims to know nothing of the dungeons and reveals to him that the only thing she knows is that her duty is to be useful to her master who has summoned her here. She starts to feel bad because she wasn't able to tell Kaido anything useful about the dungeons. Kaido offers her some comforting words and tells her that they will together learn about this dungeon by unveiling its mysteries. Shortly after they run into another goblin, who keeps punching Kaido's shield. Kaido acts as the support this time and buys Sylphie enough time to land her divine lightning strike on the goblin, eliminating it in an instant. She loses her energy because she uses such a heavy mana-consuming attack, so Kaido feeds her with a goblin core. After this successful dungeon exploration session, Kaido heads to the training hall and completely surprises the Goblin Core, who had never expected that a loser like him would be able to get Goblin Cores. She can't believe that this kid who was struggling to beat Slime a few days ago got a total of 4 Goblin Cores. Kaido claims that he just got lucky and brushes the conversation off with a nervous laugh because he fights goblins all day. Kaido's muscles become sore, so he decides to take a rest for the day. His mother becomes worried for him and tells him not to strain himself too much. The next morning, while heading to school, Kaido struggles even more, which makes Katsuragi realize that he went to the dungeon. He gets startled by her sudden speculation and once again lies to her, telling her that he would never do that. She demands an explanation from him, asking him if he didn't go to the dungeon and why he is sore all over. Kaido makes a great excuse this time, telling Katsuragi that he has been working out recently in order to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Katsuragi finds it hard to believe, so she looks deeply into Kaido's eyes and also notices how much she's trying to avoid eye contact. Still, her innocent heart makes her trust her friend's words. She accepts Kaido's lies and advises him not to work out too much, as she doesn't think a muscular build will suit his cute face, so Kaido promises her that he won't overdo it too much. Later in class, Kaido proudly tells his mates Shinji and Hayato about his heroic victory against goblins. They don't believe him, as until recently, he was only farming nothing but slime, but Kaido promises them that that is the case and gives all of the credit to himself, telling them that he has been trying to push himself to his limits, so they shouldn't think it's surprising for him to defeat a goblin. Kaido shares his plans to go even deeper into the dungeons, which makes his friends wonder if this loser will ever understand what is more important. Both Shinji and Hayato look over at Katsuragi simultaneously, implying that they think Kaido should put his focus on improving his relationship with Katsuragi instead of spending his days and nights grinding in the dungeons. Regardless of their comments, Kaido heads back to the dungeon and explores the new area on floor 2 with Sylphie, which he hasn't been to yet. They encounter a few goblins in their path, but do not face any difficulties dealing with them, thanks Sylphie's support. After collecting more goblin cores, Kaido returns home and instantly falls asleep because of how exhausted his body is. After collecting enough cash, he manages to buy a new weapon, a tungsten rod, which is definitely an upgrade, not the best one, definitely not a sharp sword or anything, but it is still better than a wooden sword. With this new weapon, Kaido hunts down goblins more efficiently because he makes dungeons his top priority. He starts losing focus on his studies and spends most of the time in class sleeping. After a few days of exploration, Kaido levels up to level 10 and unlocks a new skill. This new skill is called God's Blessing, which is granted to those who are beloved by the gods or their children. Perhaps this means that the gods of this world feel entertained by this loser, or it could mean that the demigod Sylphie is in love with him. Anyway, this skill gives a boost to status increases gained upon leveling up, and the boost itself depends on the degree of love from the divine. Kaido has his mouth left wide open as he begins to think that this skill is overpowered and starts to believe that with his OP skill he will be able to become a true main character. He believes that the god this skill speaks of is Sylphie, so he bows his head down to her and hopes that she will continue to love him. She is the only god he is associated with, and that is why it is possible that God's Blessing skill is connected to her. Kaido holds Sylphie's hands, showing his love to her, and tells her how much he loves working with her. His sudden affection increases Sylphie's love for him. She promises that she only exists to serve him and is genuinely delighted to see how much her master cares for her. Wait till she figures out that this is all but an act by her wicked master in order to get the most boost out of his new skill. They encounter a rare skeleton, this time which Sylphie one-shots with her divine lightning strikes. The skeleton drops a crimson magic core, which Kaido feeds to Sylphie. He wonders if this core is valuable and asks the receptionist, who tells him that such cores are worth at least 2 million yen, making him realize what a stupid mistake he has made, but he doesn't regret it too much, as he thinks Sylphie deserves it. To make more money, Kaido considers the idea of going down to the 3rd floor, but because monsters in groups spawn there, he thinks that he should fight off his own for a while to train himself. He tells Sylphie how dependent he has become on her, and that is why he wants to become stronger, so that he doesn't turn into a complete liability. Kaido also makes it clear to Sylphie that he does not think of her as his servant, rather, he sees her as his dependent younger sister. Sylphie definitely doesn't want to be her master's sister, but she takes it in a positive way and becomes overjoyed by the fact that her master cares for her. Anyway, as discussed, Kaido tries to solo a goblin by himself, but ends up badly injuring himself. To make sure that no one sees his sorry state, he buys an expensive potion from the receptionist and heals his wounds completely. This single battle makes him realize that he needs better equipment before going to the 3rd floor, so he once again begins to grind slime cores enough to buy equipment and for Sylphie to eat. Suddenly, Sylphie senses a strange presence on the 1st floor and detects a silver slime. Kaido hopes of getting another rare loot drop since the last rare slime dropped Sylphie's card. The silver slime doesn't disappoint as it drops another card with a woman with red horns, and this card's name is Luceria, who is a Viscount class devil, although normally the combination of a god and a devil is considered bad. Kaido still summons Luceria, who is generally of the same size as Sylphie. The story continues. We see the black-haired devil girl opens her eyes and haughtily introduces herself as the Viscount class devil Luceria. With the appearance of another child summoned, Kaido's dream of having a party full of voluptuous beautiful women is shattered. While he's still wallowing in sadness, Luceria asks him if he is his master. Kaido stands up and explains that he was about to introduce himself when Luceria interrupts him and remarks that he looks unreliable as a master. Not only that, he looks dumb too. It looks like I'm not the only one insulting the make anymore. Sylphie took offense with her words, but she is still shy, so she tries to scold Luceria while hiding behind Kaido. Luceria smiles and explains that most devils just talk like that, so they shouldn't be offended. This satisfies Sylphie, which surprises Kaido. Kaido then introduces Sylphie to Luceria, and Luceria looks at her with suspicion based on her armor. She looks very much like a Valkyrie. Sylphie explains that she is, and just like she is Kaido's servant. Luceria puts her hand out in front of Kaido and asks for some food. However, Kaido points out that she hasn't done anything worthy of food yet. Thankfully, Sylphie smells a slime nearby at this moment. When they spot the monster, Luceria nonchalantly steps out and summons her spear. She then points the spear at the slime and shoots it with her skill, Hellfire of Destruction. A huge explosion instantly kills the slime. Kaido then picks up the magic core and gives it to Luceria to eat. Luceria chews the core and asks Kaido for one more. Kaido quickly tells her no, which makes Luceria remark that they have such a cheapskate master. Sylphie tries to argue with Luceria, but Kaido just asks her to perform her other skill, Corrosive Breath. If she does, he promises to give her one more magic core. Thus, when they encounter their next monster, a goblin, Luceria casts their skill and red glitter like magic covers the goblin. The goblin immediately starts melting into hideous goo, which frightens both Kaido and Sylphie. When the goo turns into a magic core, Kaido drops it again into Luceria's mouth. Luceria's face lights up and she tells Kaido that it tasted better than last time. This must mean that the stronger the monster is, the tastier their core will be. Thus, she wants to go deeper into the dungeon. She was about to run off when Kaido stopped her. Kaido expounds how once they hit the 3rd floor of the dungeon, monsters would start appearing in groups. Before they can fight those, Kaido would need new weapons and other items first. Thus, they should go deeper tomorrow instead. Luceria didn't want to wait, but Sylphie points out that Kaido is just being considerate of them. This makes Luceria finally agreed. The next day, Kaido and the girls descend one level deeper into the 3rd level. He even bought a new weapon, a crossbow, to prepare himself. Sylphie compliments his new weapon, which makes Kaido came with pride and even boast how expensive the crossbow is. However, Luceria chimes in that just because it's expensive doesn't mean it's better, which annoyed Kaido. They continue their exploration, and the first monster they encounter were a pair of wolf-looking monsters that are seemingly inflamed. These are more commonly called hellhounds. Kaido decides to quickly eliminate one before the fight even starts. He fires his crossbow, but the bow completely misses the hellhound. Instead, it just alerted the hellhound to their position. The two monsters started running towards Kaido, who is busily trying to reload his crossbow. However, he was too slow and the dogs pounced on him. A brilliant golden barrier immediately sprouted up in front of Kaido thanks to Sylphie, which reflected the two hellhound. Kaido then tells Luceria to attack. Luceria summons her spear, and before the hellhounds can recover, she fires Hellfire of Destruction at them. After the battle, Kaido happily gives one of the magic cores to Luceria. However, she quickly gulps down the core and asks for another one. She points out that since they defeated two monsters, she also wants 2 cores. Kaido argues that there won't be any left over if he does that, so instead he promises to give her extra once they defeat a few more monsters. Luceria made him promise, and she threatens to send him to hell if he breaks his promise. Their next group of opponents came in the form of 2 wild boars charging at them with their tusks at the ready. Kaido orders Luceria to attack, and she once again fires an explosion of fire. However, one boar managed to run past the flames run towards them. Luceria was annoyed and was about to fire once more, but Kaido stepped forward. He carefully aims the crossbow and fires, directly hitting the boar in the eye. However, this failed to bring the boar down. He just roared in anger and charges again. Kaido panics and stumbles backward. Sylphie rushes to his rescue and prepares to unleash or divine lightning. Meanwhile, Kaido manages to fire his crossbow again, which finally kills the boar. Sylphie praises Kaido for managing to win. Luceria commented that Kaido still had his knees given out by the fear. However, Kaido is just happy that he leveled up again and is now level 11. Sylphie clamps and congratulates him while Luceria asks for another magic core. After his dungeon exploration, Kaido is on the escalator on his way home. He didn't really earn much today since Luceria kept demanding more cores. He then notices that a nearby group of girls are talking about their adventures on the 6th floor. This makes Kaido start to wonder if he needs a party too, even when he was already in school. Technically he is in a party with Luceria and Sylphie, and he is excited to reach the 6th floor with them too. His friends then chime in and ask if he already chose his next school. Kaido admits that he hasn't. Katsuragi joins their conversation and asks Kaido where he wants to go. Kaido has no idea what to say, so he instead asks Katsuragi what her plans are. Katsuragi admits that she is actually aiming for Alka Academy, which made Kaido also say that their goals are the same. On his next exploration, Luceria once again uses her skill to defeat the enemies and Kaido rewards her with magic cores. Sylphie uses her own skills too and Kaido feeds them the cores as reward. Kaido then notices that Sylphie keeps looking when he feeds Luceria. When he tries to ask her about it, Sylphie dodges the question and just leads them to more enemies. Later at home, Kaido is wondering if Sylphie is avoiding him or something. However, he found the answer on the TV show her mother was watching. The TV show was talking about how the girl was jealous that his brother is being treated special when he's only new. This made Kaido realize that in the future, his 2 servants might end up settling their differences in a duel. Their uber skills would surely vaporize dungeon with Kaido, and Kaido has no idea what to do to avoid this incoming disaster. The next morning, on the way to school, Katsuragi runs into Kaido and wishes him a good morning when she notices that his eyes are filled with dark circles. Kaido explains, saying that he couldn't sleep even a wink, which causes her to wonder if he is in some kind of trouble or going through any sort of stress. Kaido can't share with Katsuragi about the dungeon servant issue he is having, so he yet again goes with a lie, adding a bit of truth, saying that one of his friends has become friends with 2 girls who are the exact opposite in personality, and apparently neither of the girls like each other because they are complete polar opposites of each other. And that is why Kaido is wondering how he is going to help his friend get along with his 2 new friends. Katsuragi, being the nicest friend ever, doesn't even suspect that this Pinocchio is lying and asks Kaido if the girls truly hate each other. As Kaido fails to confirm it, she advises him to tell his friend to ask the girls about their inner feelings and if they actually feel uncomfortable around each other. So accordingly, Kaido goes back to the dungeon and summons Sylphie first to question her. He doesn't summon Luceria yet as he wants it to be a private conversation, and he asks Sylphie what she thinks of Luceria as a person and as a fellow party member. Kaido claims to know that Sylphie dislikes Luceria, but Sylphie states that is not the case and explains, saying that she was indeed scared of Luceria at first because Luceria is a demon, but as they started working together, she realized that Luceria is not that bad at all. Still, Kaido thinks that Sylphie has some problems with Luceria and tells her to speak the truth, as the truth is very important to him, so Sylphie mentions what her problem is and states that her problem is with Kaido himself and not Luceria. She accuses him of being only nice and kind to Luceria recently and points out the fact that he only uses Luceria powers in the recent battles and feeds Luceria twice as much magic core as her. Sylphie expresses her desire to be treated equally and tells him to be a great loving master to her as well. Kaido realizes that the problem or disease that Sylphie is suffering from is jealousy, and he knows that it can only be treated if he starts treating them both equally, so he promises Sylphie that from now on, he will give her as many magic cores as Luceria and will talk to her more as well. With everything settled, Kaido summons Lysiria and feed through the same amount of magic cores as Sylphie. This time he doesn't forget to praise Sylphie for using her attacking moves at the perfect time, and to thank her for being so dependable. Although Sylphie is now happy, Lysiria's mood worsens as she also starts suffering from the incurable disease called jealousy. She becomes envious of Sylphie and accuses Kaido of never complimenting her, just like he just did to Sylphie. To get Lysiria's mood back to normal, Kaido also gives her a compliment and ends this matter for once and all. They hunt a dungeon boar together and Sylphie lands the finishing room, adding enough experience points to her stats which causes her to grow to level 2. Upon leveling up, Sylphie's overall stats increase, and that makes both Kaido and Lysiria proud of her. They both congratulate Sylphie on leveling up, and that makes Sylphie feel much better than before. With the team finally bonding together, they move on and locate a bunch of hellhounds. Sylphie showcases how strong she has gotten from leveling up, and solos all of the hellhounds in one go. Her defensive spells become better at them, making her barrier wall sturdier than before. While the dumb monster tries to penetrate the wall, Kaido steps up and slays it using his crossbow. After the hunting session, Kaido feeds Sylphie with some magic cores, but she still remains hungry and reluctantly asks him for some more because he feeds her too many magic cores. Kaido ends up having fewer magic cores for himself than usual. As his usual business becomes no longer profitable, he goes back to hunting slime without Lysiria and Sylphie's help. He still summons them just in case he runs into trouble, and he thanks them for always being there when he needs them. As he starts bringing slime magic cores to the receptionist, she wonders if something is wrong because until much recently he used to bring her loot drops from floor 3. She advises Kaido to explore the 4th floor yet, which he takes into consideration, but because he doesn't have any good equipment, he goes on the internet looking for a good set of armor and decides to buy one that is basically a spandex suit with added anime rotation. However, it's very costly, so he goes back to grinding more magic cores on the 1st floor. Very conveniently, he finds another rare blue slime, which makes him wonder if he will get to add another loli to his harem. Being pumped up to have the loot drop, Kaido summons Lysiria and Sylphie, telling them both to ensure that they get to eliminate the blue slime. They both attack the slime at once, combining their divine and firepower, which puts a smile on Kaido's face. Sadly, that smile quickly fades away, as the blue slime only drops a magic orb, but then Kaido remembers that he can use this magic orb to become a wizard and hits it on the ground, which allows him to learn a magic spell called Water Ball. Having the basic powers of a level 5 Squirtle, Kaido attacks a hellhound with his Water Ball, but that doesn't deal any damage to the hellhound and only splashes its face with some regular old water. Kaido is hit with the reality that he will be a useless loser forever. But hey, at least he does have 2 overpowered servants who can do the job. Seeing that her master is in depression, Sylphie tries to cheer him up, telling him that he will surely become powerful in the future now that he has unlocked his magical powers. But still, Kaido remains upset and goes to a local park later at night to suffer alone. Katsuragi finds him there and asks him if something is bothering him. He tries to lie to her, but ends up confusing her. So he changes the topic and thanks her for the advice she gave him the other day. He tells her that his problem has been solved and forgets to mention that the problem was his friends, making Katsuragi realize that Kaido is the one who has 2 new girlfriends, but she doesn't complain and quietly goes back home, making Kaido wonder for a brief moment if Katsuragi has also started suffering from the jealousy disease. That brings the episode to an end. Thanks for watching. Want next part? Subscribe the channel and turn on notification bell.